at some point, I guess. And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the episode 137 of the Sling'N podcast. I'm TJ.
And I'm Kent.
And man, has it been a hot minute.
It has been 6 weeks.
Has it really been 6 weeks?
Maybe 4.
Something like that. That's what we get for trying to enjoy summer break, buddy. How have you been?
Dude, I couldn't be any better unless I was asleep. What about you?
I'm doing pretty damn good myself, man. Doing pretty damn good. Let's see. Let's recap. What have we been up to for the last month while we've been fucking off and not having episodes?
Guns, family vacations, fishing, guns, jiu-jitsu, teaching, working, teaching, jiu-jitsu, boring corporate IT beep boop job.
Everything but the teaching part. Yeah, about the same.
No, I was adding yours and mine.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was doing everything for everybody.
Oh, okay.
I think I got it all.
Yeah, so there's the recap, folks.
There.
Folks, in all seriousness, though, we have missed you guys. We're sure that all 12 of you have missed us, too.
Dozens of hundreds online.
Dozens of hundreds.
On the fucking, on the apples. There's many of you on the apples.
I will say this. What is really cool is that we truly are a global phenomena. We have listeners all over the country or all over the world.
Maybe even other planets.
Let's not go down that path again. That was a really, really weird episode.
I'm just saying. The Plutonians.
Yes, Anunnaki. We're not here to talk about the Anunnaki or Anunnaki or whatever the hell it is, the lizard people that live on the dark side of the moon.
That sounds like an old cell phone. Wait. Anunnaki sounds
it does. Yeah, so I bet it was built like a brick shit house like the Nokias were.
I bet. Had that little snake game with the antenna you pulled up.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and you could beat a motherfucker with the phone.
So mine didn't have the extendable antenna. My first cell phone. But my parents did for sure. So we definitely had one of those in the house. Back when the numbers were red, like it was just an LCD display and it had red numbers. Yeah, it was the shit.
I like it. I really do like it.
But we're here to talk about something far more serious. The home gunsmith, right? So Kent, you are an instructor at a gunsmithing school.
Sure, we can say I'm what am I considered? I'm considered adjunct faculty at SDI.
Yes, a junk faculty.
Yes.
At sexually transmitted institution. You said STI, right?
D Delta.
Yeah, you got the D, don't you?
Yeah,
we went there. All right. But seriously, home gunsmithing, right? I think we've all done it at some point. I mean, what's it take to be a gunsmith? I mean, you got a bastard file, you got a Dremel, and you can create macaroni art, right?
Ready?
Kent's getting into visual aid, folks. God
holy crap! I can use this for something.
It's in cursive. I can't read it.
I have an Associate's of Firearms Technology from the Sonoran Desert Institute.
Yes,
That's
actually a very good school.
It's pretty interesting.
I've heard many good things, and Kent, I can't imagine that you would still be affiliated with it in any way, shape, or form, let alone teaching there if it were a half-ass, McDojo of an institute.
So here's the deal. I tell my SDI students, and this is not an SDI promo. SDI doesn't know we're talking about this or anything else tonight. And my views and opinions are mine alone. But here's the deal. That piece of paper that is literally an accredited associate's degree does not make me a gunsmith.
Okay.
People will ask, hey, do you do gunsmithing? And my very first question is like, well, wait a minute. What are you looking to accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
And then my very second follow on to that is, let me make some terms and definitions for you. There are things that mean things to certain people. And I'll use a common business analogy, like a plumber. You can go to school for plumbing, but many would say you are not a plumber until you have apprenticed under a plumber.
Okay.
Many states would, most states will not give you a plumbing license unless you have completed an apprenticeship program of some variety. Okay. So what I am an armorer for several different manufacturers and in a couple different disciplines as taught by, for example, Sons of Liberty Gunworks is the most recent armorers course I've attended. Right. I have a degree in firearms technology, which is oftentimes referred to as a gunsmithing degree, which I can understand a common vernacular, but to be very clear, I've never worked in a gunsmithing setting under the watchful eye of old Pappy the gunsmith who was apprenticing me to bring me along in my career. That is not part of the SDI curriculum. That is not part of what I've experienced in my life. And as such, I do not refer to myself as a gunsmith because I find that to be like, I might have a real estate agent's license, for example. There's another good, like if you have a realtor's license, and I just did it. You have a real estate license, but that doesn't make you a realtor. A realtor is a guild or an association of like a group of people who all agree that person is a professional realtor. You feel me?
I feel you. Yeah, so, I equate it to my knife making, right? So, well, I think the differentiation here, I think in the key words that you're using so far are gunsmith versus armorer, right? In the knife making world, you have a bladesmith or you have a knife maker, right? It pales in comparison to the level of skill and acumen that goes into, you know, the difference between an armorer and a gunsmith. But follow me directionally. A bladesmith is someone who can take raw material and forge a blade, a complete knife from start to finish. Today, and actually for the last several decades, ABS, I believe it's ABS, whatever it is, ABS Mastersmith. You know, they have journeyman or apprentice, journeyman, and mastersmiths, whatever it is. I don't follow that. I don't follow it that religiously, but you guys get what I'm saying. Anyone who's watched Forged in Fire knows what the hell I'm talking about. But anyone can make a knife. Anyone can work on a gun or keep it serviceable and functioning. But only certain people are recognized as having the level of skill and acumen necessary to create something, a completely finished and refined product from bare materials.
Yeah, so
right.
That's a good example. Another good way to look at this is, right, like, you wouldn't refer to a guy, you know, there's ASC certified mechanics.
Yep.
Like a dude that went to mechanic college, car plumber university, and has a certification to work on, you know, Ford, Chevy, Dodge, Toyota, whatever. He's an ASC certified mechanic. And then there are folks who go to, like, they work for Ford and they are Ford or GM or Chrysler
service technicians,
service techs, or even mechanics. But their only formal schooling is on Ford.
Right.
So, or whatever brand. So, like, an armor would be the Glock armor, the Smith & Wesson armor, or the whatever. Then some companies and some organizations, like I have a AR-15 armorer's certificate that is not brand, is kind of brand agnostic. So some companies do that differently. the degree in firearms technology from SDI, it's an online firearms technology degree, which gives you high level, broad brush kind of strokes on the firearms business, industry, technology. There is hands on, you build now you get sent a 1911, you tear it down, put it back together from scratch, take measurements, stuff like that. You build a home musket kit, you build an AR-15 rifle off of a build parts kit, like a receiver, drill your own receiver out. You build your own holster. There's hands-on stuff to it, but you're not in a classroom with Professor Ramsey who's going to teach you about making knives for 20 weeks. It's just not the same. So what I would say about the SDI degree is if somebody wanted to put out a shingle, like if Green Mountain Defense was going to advertise my business, I was going to advertise and throw up a shingle that said Pennsylvania Gunsmith, Mechanicsburg, PA Gunsmith. I would probably, prior to doing so, I for sure would, and I would recommend anybody else does, go out to Yavapai or go out to the Pennsylvania Gunsmithing Institute or go out. There's a bunch of places where you can get into an in-person, gunsmithing program.
Trade
school. Yeah. A lot of community colleges have trade school level gunsmithing programs. It would be a really good congruent thing to have. So you have our degree, and then you go and get the trade school thing. And between the two of those, I would say that within reason, you can refer to yourself as a gunsmith.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we at the gun store I worked at, we had a master gunsmith that led our gunsmithing shop, and I remember talking to him about like, hey, what was gunsmith school like? Because he actually went to one of the ones in Colorado, like the big one.
Sure.
I can't remember. Ironically enough, I actually recall it being in Rifle, Colorado, but
yeah.
But he went to.
Can't think of it.
Yeah, he's a graduate from that one, and I even asked him. I was like, "Well, what was that like?" He goes, "Honestly, the first thing that we did was we made tools.
Yep.
First thing that they did, and he even still had it. It was a 1911 armorer's wrench, just a bushing wrench. Like that's all. That was it. That was their first assignment was to machine a 1911 armorer's tool or bushing wrench. So."
Trinidad State College in Colorado has a gunsmithing program.
That might have been it. I can't remember the name of the one. There's actually quite a few. Colorado, like that's one of the within the gunsmithing world. Like from what I understand, that is the state to go to if you want to attend armorers or gunsmithing college.
Colorado School of Trades. I think the best one in the business is Yavapai out of Arizona. Pennsylvania Gunsmithing Institute is pretty good. There are numerous ones, but either way, at the end of the day, so like for just to not to muddy the waters even further, but like from an FFL standpoint, when you apply for like here in Pennsylvania, you apply for your firearms dealer's license. If you're going to do any work at all in the gun, if you're going to put a set of sights on a Glock, you're also checking the box for gunsmithing.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is their overarching term for all things mechanically done to a gun. So if you're cutting the slide for an optic, porting the barrel, and freaking Dremelin in a grip, Ben Simonson from Boresight Solution style, all the way down to like, if you're me, when a student comes to you at a gun class and says, hey, I just bought this dot and the CHPWS plate and these sights, can you help me put all this together so my gun can run better for class? A lot of times in the eyes of the law, I'm a gunsmith now,
right?
I guess, which isn't that is nobody's. That's not a real credential. You feel me? That just doesn't make a lot of sense. But here's
that's just a categorization in the eyes of the federal government, and they've never made any mistakes with that, have they?
Right. So for this conversation, what I really kind of want to talk about is something my granddaddy would have called being your own kind of shade tree mechanic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like your own.
We call them kitchen counter gunsmiths.
Sure. So Justin always busts on me, Pennsylvania Bubba Gunsmith guy, right? Like, I'm not afraid to make something do something that it wasn't originally intended to do. I'm not afraid to cut something. I'm not afraid to drill into something that wasn't originally drilled. Like, hey man, we're going to get after it. We got a thing that we're trying to do, so we're going to do it.
Also, I know how to read a parts manual, so I can order the ones I fuck up.
That's right. That's right. Sometimes we become parts hangers. But like somewhere between a guy who literally can't drift on his own Glock sights on the far left end, and on the far right end, a fully custom operational gunsmith who can do anything with anything, is a reality where I think most of us serious end users should probably find ourselves. Like, especially these days, and I have a couple of there's a couple of projects or really just issues I ran into here that, without the level of knowledge that I've obtained through things like other armorers courses, SDI, et cetera, I would have found myself in a position where I'd have been screwed. The gun I was tinkering with, toying with, working with, or relying on to help me make my income, totally non-functional without my ability to do some pretty advanced maintenance in terms of like maintenance things. So we can talk about I've got 3 guns that are examples. They're good independent examples of what I'm talking about. But the overarching idea to me would be, I'm talking about going beyond a field strip clean and reassemble. And I'm talking about going beyond hey, this needs a new spring, or hey, this needs maybe it needs a new guide rod or recoil spring, or hey, whatever. I'm talking we're getting into the innards of this bad boy, diagnosing what's wrong, then fixing what's wrong, then verifying that fix, and then moving on. And through that process, if you're willing to undertake it, a couple things occur. Number one, and I'll just tell you from my personal experience, once you've gone that far on a gun, that son of a bitch is yours forever, right? Like the one gun that we're going to talk about here is my Ruger GP100 match champion. Well, boy, I'll tell you what, I know exactly what that gun's made of now. I know exactly how it goes apart and comes apart and goes back together, because it happened about 11 times in the process. I know where I understand. The other thing is I now have a better understanding of why a Ruger match champion is a better revolver than a regular Ruger GP100. Right? Because I've been under the hood, so to speak, and I've had it all apart. And now that I know that gun so intimately, and now that I know I have it squared away, and now that I know I have it running, I have a real deep level of trust in that thing. Like, now I look at that and I go, oh man, this is a system. And where I started at a place of like lack of knowledge and understanding with that tool, I followed the same principles that I followed throughout my career and working on this crap. And I've now come to a place where I'm looking at Ruger GP100s like, oh, I can do all the things to it that it needs done to it now.
Right.
So now it's a Glock to me. Now I look at it and I'm like, oh, I can fix that. I can fix that. I can fix that. I can fix that. Well, fuck it. I'm pretty confident in this thing. And what started as, oh, fuck, this gun's not going to be running for the class I need it to run for at the end of July, turned into, I'm going to go online. I'm going to order a couple of these and a couple of those and one of these. And I'm going to make myself just like my freaking Glock Armorer's kit, where like, ask your boy TJ here, you could bring You could bring Glock to Kent's house, and Glock can come back totally customized out of shit that's down here in his basement, just hanging out, right?
Yep, still got the slide.
Right. I can customize the whole damn, like, literally, I have a Glock repair kit in the truck.
Like, yeah, we legit Frankenstein together all the necessary parts for that Glock slide, and by God, it's a Glock. Like, it works.
Right. But it's all stuff where I look and I'm like, all right, so now I'm not afraid to invest in the GP100 as a revolver system that is going to be I'm going to own an LCR, I'm going to own 2 LCRs, and I'm going to own GP100s, and that's it now, because now I've been all through GP100s and I know what I'm fucking with.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel pretty confident that I had a learning experience. And I'm going to shout out a couple folks throughout this process as we talk. Please remind me, because there's 2 industry folks that helped me to no benefit of their own, just because this is a cool industry and people are willing to help. So we got to talk through that too. But the point becomes, like, once you know it yourself, it's kind of like, TJ, you're very much this way with your Jeep, right? Like, you've been into your Jeep, like, you've been at it. You've been watching you when we went on our off-roading trip together. You approached your Jeep with a level of confidence that I approached like a Glock handgun with.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking sway bar end links out. You're freaking, you got a whole toolkit for the thing. You're messing with bushings or whatever. I don't even know what the name of half the crap I'm thinking.
Yeah, but it was the bushies. But yeah, I carry enough spare parts to rebuild all the major components of that Jeep.
Right. And as a consequence, you were perfectly functional and capable of helping me rip a bumper off and helping me wire up a winch and mount up a winch. And it wasn't like, there might have been like a quick check of a reference and like, where does that go? Or where's this? Like, how's that line up? Nothing wrong with checking references, by the way. But the level of confidence in TJ's ability to rip into that Jeep is only gained through experience. Like, you can fake the funk to a certain point until you're standing there with a wrench in your hand, and one dude's scratching his ass, and the other dude has half the Jeep apart by the time the other guy comes back with a beer. Like, it's clear to me, people either know things or they don't. I'll tell you right now, looking at that Ruger GP100 to start with, I was the equivalent of the dude scratching his ass and going to get a beer. I walked away and looked at that bitch and walked away about 6 times.
Yeah.
Right. And I eventually just I use as an instructor at a gunsmithing school. Thankfully, I have a lot of cool references and books and materials and shit. I broke into some reference materials. I got some exploded parts diagrams. Through some help, I figured some stuff out with that gun that now I've learned, I know, I understand, and I can replicate and duplicate my ability to service that in the future. So that's pretty cool. So let's go through our examples. And since we're first starting on it, the end of July here coming up, I'm attending the Rangemaster Master Firearms Instructors course. So I will be a Rangemaster Master guy. The highest tier Rangemaster certified instructor you can be outside of being staff, like on Tom Gibbons' personal staff, right?
You can officially change your last name to Gibbons.
No, I cannot. No.
Damn.
No, I cannot. But I'll be attending a Rangemaster Master Instructor Firearms Instructor course. One of the things that is required of us when we attend that is to bring a service caliber revolver, a service caliber double action revolver to shoot a revolver qual with. Right? Okay. So I own the revolvers I own are as follows: a Ruger LCR. That's not. There's a couple other ones back there, but those are like dad's old shit and stuff that stays put away and whatever. The actual like Kent's guns that Kent uses: Ruger LCR 3-inch 22. Not a service caliber. That's out. Move on. Ruger LCR 1 7/8 inch 38 special. Technically a service caliber. I really don't want to shoot a whole qual with a J-frame stubby.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of kick to it. I've got one.
sounds kind of like not a fun time to me, and I'd like to actually pass this qual. So moving on, my competition revolver set up for IDPA competition using 40 Smith & Wesson Moon clips, and that is a Ruger GP100 10mm match champion. 4.2 inch barrel, wood grips, kick-ass trigger compared to other Ruger GP100s. Now I know why.
Yeah, very nice gun, by the way.
Chambered in 10 mil, but if you get moon clips for 40 Smith & Wesson, you can run 40 Smith & Wesson super effectively. All right, so as one does when one feels a lack of confidence in their abilities on something, or even, quite frankly, just as a professional, make no mistake, it is my intention to do everything I can to take top shooter in this class. I got some stiff competition. I mean, Dan Brady and Derek Watkins from Apache are showing up. I don't know who else is, by the way. No disrespect to anybody who I don't know is registered, but just on dudes I know are registered for this course, like I can't just guarantee a walk-on win in top shooter, although they're fucked because I'm going to get their ass. But, you know, we got to say that. I don't intend to just show up and pass. I intend to show up and fucking represent well, because that's what you want to do. So I go out and I buy 3,000. Well, Soph goes out and buys 3,000 rounds of 40 Smith & Wesson service ammo, seller and below 180 grain. Shout out to Spar Firearms for giving us great ammo deals here in Mechanicsburg, PA. Right. I go to TK Customs and I buy more moon clips. I already have about 25 of these moon clips that should work. I go, fuck this mess. I'm gonna buy 50 of these bad boys. I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna be able to have like 400 rounds in moon clips already for this event. So I could pay and give my full attention to the course of fire and the instruction being given and what's being asked of me, rather than be standing over there in the corner like loading moon clips on my moon clip tool, right? Much the same as I approach all these classes with, like, I'm also going to show up with enough ammo in mags to shoot the semi-auto portion, right? More on that later, because that's now going to require the use of 2011 mags, and that's going to be a fucking bitch of a proposition. But hey, girl, hey, like, whatever, that's how we do. So I intend to show up with several hundred rounds in mags and several hundred rounds in moon clips. So I went and bought all this crap. And we have 3,000 rounds of ammo, and I told myself that I would travel with 1,500 of it, just in case. I'm told to expect to shoot 400 to 500 rounds of it, but just in case it gets a little wild, I'm going to travel with like 1,000 or 1,500 of it, which gives me 1,500 to 2,000 rounds of it to practice with. Makes sense. I grab my moon clip loaders. I load up all these fucking moon clips. I grab my my moon clip holders, mount them to my belt, dust off Dad's old Safari Land revolver holster, mount that bitch on the belt. It's IDPA competition season all over again with the revolver, right? I shoot a revolver like once or twice a year in IDPA competition for funsies with my boys. Gun ran just fine the last time. I load up a moon clip. I go to shut the cylinder. Cylinder won't shut. Fuck, I bent a moon clip, right? Moon clips are little stainless steel circular cylindrical clips that you put ammo in, and they help the cartridge headspace, because semi-auto rounds in revolvers are tough because they're rimless and all that. So, okay. I go to shut another cylinder full of moon clips. Fuck, bent moon clip. Go to do it again. That one works, so I shoot it. To the end of my first practice session, out of 75 TK custom moon clips, $6 a whack moon clips. They had a 4th of July sale going. $6 a whack moon clips. And by the way, they ran they started that bitch at like June 10th or whatever, but that's besides the point. $6 a whack moon clips. I'm standing there with 70 of these sons of bitches. About 56 of them will not close in the gun. And a couple that will close in the gun will not allow the cylinder to turn. And boy, what do you think I did? I called up TK Custom the next morning. I was like, right now, you motherfuckers selling me bent moon clips. I got on the phone with a nice gentleman by the name of Riley, and he goes, let me get this straight. Our like number one product that we're the awesomest at all awesome of making, we failed to make for you 50 some times in a row and sent you a brand new package of shit that don't run. Like, yeah, man, is that so hard to believe? And he was like, a little. I'm like, okay. Homeboy's a little confident. Like, I like that. So dude from TK Customs is like, bro, there's something wrong with your gun. I'm like, why? Are you sure these moon clips aren't bent? He's like, well, did you dance on them before? Like, I'm like, I've had a bent moon clip, right? Because like
they're made out of spring steel, if I remember correctly. They're not the easiest. They will bend, but they do not bend easily.
Well, okay, so I shot IDPA with him on the indoor range, and a 260-pound dude stepped on one of my moon clips. He bent the fuck out of it. Like, yeah,
that will bend it. Yeah.
He picked it up, handed it to me, went, sorry, bro. And I went, fuck. I immediately just threw it right in the trash. I was like, yeah, that's over, right? So I know that this is a thing, but I'm sitting there like, I'm like, well, maybe your tolerance is off, or there's a microscopic bend in the moon clip. Or he's like, bro, we flatten them out with hammers and run them again. Like, something's wrong with your gun. I'm like, all right. What should I do? And he's like, send me your gun. I'll fix it. Cool, bro. And they ain't got time for that. Right? So, well, tear it apart. Like, yeah, I might tear it apart. So, you know, I got it all tore apart. I literally exploded Ruger parts diagram. Every little spring, every little piece, the hand, the cylinder, the trigger guard, the freaking mainspring housing, the hammer. I had her down to brass tacks, right? And I came to the conclusion that I had shot that revolver more than I thought I had. I looked at it and I went, boy, there's a lot of carbon buildup in this bitch that I didn't realize was in all these nooks and crannies. I guess I've shot this thing more than I thought I had. I gave it a good old cleaning. I got it all put back together. It function tested fine. Click, click, click on the trigger. Life is good there. Shut the cylinder. Partially cock the hammer. Spin the cylinder free. Cylinder makes a cool little ratcheting sound. I go, man, that's cool. We good. I grab a couple snap caps, throw them in a moon clip, shut the cylinder, spin it. Works fine. We good, man. We go back out the next couple days, we'll be fine. Go back out the next couple days. Boom, 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 fuck. Boom, boom, fuck. Boom, boom, fuck. A lot of fuck going on. Practicing. Justin and I are out practicing. Gun's not running right. This time, it's gotten to the point where, like, about 10 moon clips will close and run in the gun. This whole other batch of moon clips will not close and run in the gun. I say to myself, that's fucked up. I don't understand. I start taking measurements and looking at things, and I come to the conclusion that my headspace is off. Like, there's not enough room for that cylinder to turn. Take it all apart again, mess with the cylinder. I figure maybe the cylinder's like not in the correct position, or it's migrated, something like that. Timing's off. I don't know, right? Something else has got to be going on. Clean it all again, put it back together. This time I function test it with live ammo here in the house. Yes, I did. Fuck you. I didn't shoot it. All I did was put live ammo in a moon clip, cock it partially, try to spin it. Some bitch held up. One spin. This is now the third time this revolver's all been apart. Take it all back apart. I call up my trusty friend. We'll call him Pap from IDPA. Pap from IDPA is a 50-year machinist, right? My man's been, you want to talk making tools, making machines, tool and die, all this stuff. Old Pap looks at it. He takes one look at this thing and he goes, headspace is fucked. I said, how can you tell? And he goes, it's at least 5 or 6 thou different than my GP 100 match champion. I was like, you're using your eyes, dude. Like, do you have a feeler gauge? He goes, my eyes are feeler gauges. God damn it, I'm a machinist. Okay, Pat. What do you suppose we do? I said, this used to headspace fine. This used to spin these. And he goes, of course it did. I said, what do you suppose the difference is? He goes, you're looking at the cylinder. You're not looking at the recoil shield. Recoil shield's a fixed part. I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, well, the recoil shield's a fixed part, but something moves in there. I said, you mean to tell me my firing pin got longer? Sure did. Look at how much your firing pin's protruding into the recoil shield. Firing pin's too long. It's dragging on the cylinder. Pap, how the fuck my firing pin get longer? He goes, now that is a good question. But look at your firing pin. Holds up air gun. Look at my firing pin. Holds up air gun. He's like, I know you're used to looking at small little stuff, but like, bro, does that not look longer to you? And I'm like, yeah, it does. And he says, well, geez, I guess we're going to have to take the firing pin out of this gun. All right, cool. So I pull it all apart and I'm looking at it and
Call TJ and ask him if he knows how to take the firing pin out of a GP100.
I do believe I did do that at a certain point.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Right. Then, talking to TK Customs again, as I called them back to say, hey, my apologies. I think your moon clip's probably just fine. But I don't suppose you know how to get a freaking firing pin out of this gun, do you? The guy goes, oh, fuck. Like, what? He's like, dude, you're like, that's going to be a problem. There's a special tool for that. Shit. Okay. Get on the internet, Ruger GP100 firing pin tool. Sure enough, looks kind of like a tuning fork. It's a screwdriver with a thing on one side, a thing on the other side. It's like a flathead screwdriver with a hole in the middle. You put it in the holes.
Yeah, like a spanner wrench.
I would say a spanner wrench, but yeah, it's not super wrenchy. But anyway, that's close enough.
A spanner driver.
Sure. Old Pat Paulbecker. Shit, I said his name on the internet. Oh well, sorry, brother. He does the old. He goes, well, I got one of those. I said, no shit. Comes to the house.
He's like, I'm a machinist.
Right. No, he brings it. This is amazing. He looks at it, looks at the gun, looks at the bit he has for a screwdriver set, and he goes, fuck, it don't fit. I'm gonna sneeze, baby. This is great podcasting. Sneeze averted. So Pap looks at it and he goes, that don't fit. I'm like, dude, you didn't even try it. He goes, again, my eyes are feeler gauges. Ain't gonna work. We go to try it. Sure enough, his spanner at the end is more squared, and the spanner in the Ruger is more rounded.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So him and I are together on this. We're looking at different ways. You know, can we put a punch in there and hammer one side to get it to spin? How can we do this? Finally, he looks at me in true Pennsylvania Bubba Gunsmith fashion, and he says the words that everybody at a kitchen table has ever wanted to hear, which is, you got a Dremel? Boy, I tell you,
we're going to make a hand turkey.
That old bastard looked at the gun, didn't even have the gun with him when he went down to the bench, took his bit to the bench, took his Dremel, and started muttering numbers to himself as he dremeled his square spanner wrench bit into a round spanner wrench bit. Walked it over to the gun, put it in the vise, took the freaking hammer, whack, 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 hammered it back into place so that it would, in fact, spin. He made it a permanent bit, right, in the back of the firing pin channel. Then he attached his Torx head thing to that and began to sit there and go, so how long do you want your firing pin? Motherfucker, right? So we started playing with measurements, figured it out. Bottom line, we got moon clips to spin in it, moon clips to feed and fire. I just shot a whole IDPA match with it as a proof of concept. This thing ran 120 rounds without a failure. It wouldn't get through 2 moon clips without a failure before we fucked with it. I loaded.
So, I've got to ask, because the nerd in me is dying to know. Do you mean to tell me that you can set the headspace on a Ruger GP100 match champion by adjusting the retention screw for the firing pin?
Yes, sir, I do.
Because that's not the direction that I thought that was going to go. I envision, and for those playing the home game, most firing pins are tapered. They have a series of tapers. A good example, although not a perfect universal example, but a good example of what I'm talking about, is if you look at your common variety AR-15 firing pin. It is not just a cylindrical rod that is level all the way around. It has tapers. I was of the impression that either the taper of the firing pin wore down as it was going in and out of the firing pin hole, or it wallowed out the hole in your frame as it was striking the rounds. You know what I mean? Like maybe it just went in a little too deep. That's what I was envisioning. I did not realize that you could adjust the headspace on, or not necessarily the headspace, but the firing pin penetration depth with that screw. I thought you were just going to like take it out and replace the firing pin.
No. Not like that.
Well, that's a hell of a plot twist.
Yeah, so more specifically in the GP100, there's a firing pin bushing, which is the thing we were screwing on the back with the spanner wrench. There's the firing pin, and there's a firing pin rebound spring, which pushes the firing pin back into the recoil channel after it's allowed forward.
Right.
Somehow, my bushing ended up screwing itself down further into the frame.
Right. Yeah. So rather than walking out, it was walking in.
Yeah. So as it was walking, it was rightying, not leftying. You feel me?
It's probably because you're a left-handed shooter.
Oh my God, that is the answer. That's a perfect answer.
I'll be here all night.
That's fucking perfect. Hilarious and perfect. I love it. I don't know what to tell. I don't know how that is a thing. I know this revolver used to headspace right, and I know it stopped headspacing right.
Mm-hmm.
I know that moving that bushing solved the problem. I witness marked the bushing, and after shooting it a lot, the bushing didn't move again. Right? I took every one of them moon clips, loaded every one of them motherfuckers, 420 some rounds full of them. I sat at the freaking table, put a moon clip in, closed the cylinder, cocked it, half cocked it. Like you can pull back on a revolver's hammer just enough so the cylinder free spin. Right. I free spun the whole thing so that I knew it wouldn't hold up in any of the moon clips. Popped the cylinder loose, put it to the right, did it again, did it again, did it again, did it again. Until I was confident that they would all run. At this point, this thing's now got 300 some rounds through it that are not exhibiting the same problem. Shout outs. TK Customs for being willing to talk to me on the phone a bunch of times, figure it out. Caleb Giddings of now of Taurus USA and of Gun Nuts Media, Mr. Revolver on YouTube. Caleb Giddings is a IDPA masterclass revolver shooter, former Top Shot TV show star. That dude trying to help me diagnose and talk through stuff on Instagram. Very helpful, very polite. Good old Pap over here. Between a couple of us, what we avoided was me having to buy a new gun to go to Gibbons' class, and we avoided this gun.
Or doing it with your stubby.
Right. And we avoided this gun having to go back to Ruger. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that was pretty cool. I'm trying to, Riley from TK Custom. So that's the it was pretty cool. It was a pretty neat little experience and event. So pretty proud of that, right? So here, things I've learned. What makes the Ruger GP100 so special? Well, the trigger, hammer, and the mainspring are upgraded over factory. They're not the same as like a GP100 4-inch regular gun. And the hammer in the GP 100 match champion is shimmed in place. So sometimes revolvers require hammer shims in order to keep the hammer from dragging on one side of the frame or the other during a trigger press. So that hammer is actually shimmed in place. So the shimmed hammer, the trigger mechanism itself, like the trigger pack itself, and the mainspring housing and the mainspring housing, or whatever you would call it, are the upgraded parts in a match champion. I also noted that, as Ruger states, the match champions are hand assembled and proof marked by Ruger in-house gunsmiths. And I now know the initials and the little proof marking of the gentleman who put my gun together, because I was able to witness that same mark and that same etching in numerous parts of that gun as I had the whole thing apart.
That's really cool. It's like a little Easter egg hunt, right?
Yeah, it was neat. Like matching serial numbers on a car, but it's just cool to see his mark.
Yeah, it's like pulling the valve cover off of your old Mustang and seeing Shelby's signature on the inside of the valve cover or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. And then we could talk. Let's talk about you want to do the 2011 or the shotgun next?
Let's do the shotgun, because I've got a comparable home kitchen counter gunsmith story to tell about my shotgun work too. So let's do the shotgun.
All right, cool. So Mossberg 940 Pro Tactical. Phil Groff from Vigor Training will tell you how it's a revolutionary firearm that has changed the industry of shotguns forever. That's an inside joke. But Mossberg 940 Pro Tactical, it's actually a really squared away shotgun. But there are some things that I didn't like about it. Okay. Namely, its lack of ability to accept a QD sling socket in the rear of the stock. Its difficulty mounting a light. Let's see, what else did I change? And its inability to accept a QD sling socket and a light in the same place on the barrel clamp. So nothing worse than having your light hang off the same side as your sling does and start to catch and bind and be annoying kind of deal, right? So what did I have to do to solve these problems? Well, first thing I did was I took the buttstock off of the rear of the gun. I drilled a tapered hole. I used a couple of washers and some QD sling swivel hardware, and I put myself a QD sling cup on the back of the motherfucker because I wanted a QD sling attachment point on the front side. So when you're slinging a shotgun, you want it on the front side. You want your sling hanging off the front of the stock, you don't want the sling between the stock and your chest, because if it does, it'll outboard and flap away from your body. So you want the sling to be wrapped around the back of the stock. So on my gun, on the rear left side is a QD sling swivel that I self-installed. That was a pretty relatively easy project, but a lot of guys wouldn't be willing to drill the rear of their brand new shotgun, right? So I did that with some washers and stuff like that. The front, I ended up screwing in a self-tapping sling swivel screw, much the same as you would screw in a sling swivel screw into a wood stock on a shotgun or a rifle. Mm-hmm. So I attached one of them to the very front of the magazine tube, actually. So my sling now goes from the very rear of the gun to the very front of the gun, and actually is indexed on the magazine tube itself. No, it does not cause binding in the magazine tube. No, it has not limited, it didn't go from a 7-round to a 6-round tube or anything stupid like that. Worked out just fine. Made sure I didn't interfere with the springs or the little plastic follower piece at the end of the spring. Not the actual follower itself down in the gun, but there's a little plastic follower at the end of the spring on the other end under the cap. Asked Justin about that piece. That's the one he forgot about and then blamed Mossberg for when his gun wouldn't run. Hashtag humble brag. I love it when he's not here and I just bust on him. Back to revolvers. Justin and I shot the same revolver match together, and I am the self-appointed that day's revolver champion because I beat him with a revolver. It was amazing. I was the division winner. I mean, he had a Smith & Wesson K-frame with speed strips, and I had moon clips, but whatever. Shut up. I beat him. It was totally a fair fight. It's totally a fair fight. Anyway, so attached the sling, made some modifications to the barrel clamp so that the light mount would hold on more aggressively. The barrel clamp that Mossberg sells doesn't stay in place for shit because it's plastic, and heat doesn't make plastic listen. So the plastic wants to slide back and forth between the magazine tube and the barrel. So I kind of deformed that and forced it to stay in place with some metal hardware drilled and running through the barrel clamp instead of just the one little socket screw set that it came with. So that worked out nicely. So now we have a real nice, surefire weapon light mounted up there. And I had nowhere to mount the tape switch for the weapon light because they won't put fucking M-lock slots on their shotgun forend for their super duper tactical shotgun. We put a red dot on it, but we can't throw an M-lock slot on it. That would cost like $9 million. It's one of those deals where it's like, come on, man. Like, why couldn't you put an M-lock slot in there? So I said to hell with it. And as a matter of fact, Pap again, there's going to be a running Pap theme here. Pap and I removed that forend, drilled the son of a bitch, put some hardware through it, and we used hardware from shout-out Filster Holsters to drill through a surefire tape switch and permanently hand turkey that motherfucker to a shotgun forend. So now I have a surefire tape switch hand turkeyed up to the shotgun forend. Hashtag humble brag. One of a kind. Nowhere else in America will you find one of these. I promise I'm the only dude using Filster holster hardware and them little rubber crush grommets and shit to hold a forend to hold a light onto a shotgun forend. And it works fucking beautifully. And I'm going to patent that shit. I'm going to call it the hand turkey forend light adapter majigger. I'm going to sell that motherfucker for $11 a piece on eBay.
It'd only look better if you let the kid do it.
Okay, listen, listeners. When I tell you this looks ugly, she ugly. But you know what else she is? She's functional, kind of like your mom. Ugly but functional. So I don't want to hear shit. It worked. And
you leave Dorothy Mantooth out of this, she is a saint.
Right. With the help of some zip ties, all of a sudden cable management isn't a problem.
It disturbs me your lack of trust in duct tape.
Yeah, I don't really trust duct tape. I don't do duct tape very well.
So in a previous life, when I was an avid 3-gun competitor, this was before the Mossberg 940. This was the predecessor of the Mossberg 930. When I say a bastard file and a Dremel makes you a gunsmith, tell you what, I could load 8 rounds into that shotgun real fucking quick. So ultimately what I ended up doing was opening up the loading port.
Yeah, you hogged out the loading port.
Yeah, hogged out the loading port, hit it with a bastard file. And when I say I hogged out a loading port, I don't mean that I polished a few things. I mean I took a good 1/4 of an inch, if not more, out of the receiver so I could quad load.
The shotgun was no longer 922R compliant because it didn't weigh enough after you fucked with the loading port.
Right. So just to put things into perspective for the visual aid portion. So if you can imagine the bottom of my finger. So my fingers are the standard line for the bottom of a shotgun receiver into the loading port. I removed enough material to make it look like that. So I could get that piece of the receiver out of the way so I could quad load shotgun shells faster. Ultimately, it worked. But here's an important thing that I've learned about most firearms, semi-automatic shotguns included. The smallest of parts, and I mean the smallest of parts, will render that thing inoperable. Kind of like the cotter pin on an AR-15 bolt. So in that receiver, there is a small pin that holds the shell catch in place. So when you run a shotgun, this is the mechanism or the claw that keeps the shells in the tube and allows them to come out whenever the gun is cycling. All right, lets one round out, feeds it into the chamber as it expends the spent shell, or hull, if you want to get technical. In holding that pin in place is the world's smallest cotter pin. I had to get the glasses, like eyeglasses screwdrivers. I had to get a flathead eyeglass screwdriver, bend that little bastard about 10 degrees in order to pull that cotter pin out. Luckily, that little screwdriver was magnetized and it was able to hold on and retain that little cotter pin. And ultimately the pin that came across it, that it was holding in place. But yeah, had I made a single mistake and lost that cotter pin or that retaining pin, the shotgun would have been a brick.
Yeah.
Would have been rendered completely non-functional.
Yeah, it's pretty annoying that way.
Now, fun things, though, that I did do, because while I was doing that, I ended up hogging away too much of the forend. I replaced it with JB Weld. I was able to rebuild the forend on the receiver side of the forend with JB Weld and sand it, paint it into position. You'd never know that there was anything wrong with it. Actually, it made it better because it was able to, I was then allowed to slope the near side of the forend so that when I ran my quad loads, because you're throwing your hand above, over the gun, is no longer snagged. So that actually worked out to my benefit.
I like it.
Yep. And then I dipped it in epoxy and rolled it around in 60, 80 grit silicon carbide dust and made myself some really grippy parts of that shotgun.
That's awesome. I might do that silicon carbide thing on the forend and the.
I think I've still got some.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think I've still got some. Yeah,
I might start using that for some stuff. That's a pretty cool trick.
Let's see. I stole the idea from a lot of the high end like 2011 manufacturers, because they were like, especially when 3-gun. Bless you. There it is. Finally, there it is. There's the other sneeze, and then you mute. You mute after you sneeze. Okay.
I found the mute button after I sneeze. Shut up.
Anyway, what a lot of these guys, these manufacturers were doing is they would dip their grip modules in epoxy and dust them with 60, 80 grit silicon carbide dust. And that's how you got like those it feels like skateboard tape, but it's more permanent than skateboard tape because, believe it or not, yes, skateboard tape was a thing that we used. But that adhesive would always eventually break down over time with the oils and sweat from your hands and just the heat of the day. Tape doesn't stay on a gun very well, especially a grip. So,
right.
Yeah, it's a really, really, really good option. Now, it is a permanent option. Let's be clear. Like that is everything that I've done to that shotgun was a permanent modification of that shotgun.
Oh yeah, well, most of my modifications are permanent too. You put holes in shit, you can't unput holes in shit.
Right.
Or, as my SDI students will have heard me say numerous times, you can always take away more material, but you can never put it back.
That's right.
Unless you're TJ with JB Weld and the plastic forend. In this case, I guess you can. But I don't want to play that game. Let's see. Where do we end off?
I didn't have Bondo. I don't know what to tell you.
Bondo's good. Oh, 2011.
Bondo actually probably would work. But yeah, so 2011s, and because of our devout follower, MG Butson, who's following us over here in chat, along with his kiddos. we have got to at least wrap it up with some Glock talk, because I feel like that's the gateway drug for your home gunsmith or armorer.
All right, cool. So let's do 2011. This one's simple but not simple. An esteemed 2011 manufacturer to be named later is working with the podcast and has sent us some guns. And we are GMD, the training company, and Sling'N led podcast are evaluating those and have evaluated those, and we're about ready to say, like, yeah, they're really fucking good. You should go buy some. But as you do, you get a new gun, a new platform, and you have to freaking dry fire it, work with it, do the whole damn thing. And I broke my safety. Sure did. Dry fire in a 2011, broke the shit out of the ambidextrous safety. And I had to refit and reattach an ambidextrous safety to a 2011. Anybody on here know how to do that? Bueller? It ain't that hard, but, like, do you know how to strip down a 1911 or 2011 to the point where you can get the safety in and out? And, like,
yeah, that's the interesting thing about that is, like, the hard part's actually breaking those damn things down to get to the replacement of the safety isn't the hard part.
Right. But we are, after all, fucking with the safety on a single action gun that I'm going to appendix carry. Like, right? We better do that fucking job, right? Because you don't want to deactivate the grip safety in the process. You don't want to fuck up the engagement of the sear in the process and have the hammer do whatever it wants. And, you want to make sure that the slide mounted safety works correctly. And my dear friend, Mr. Justin, helped me with that because we were dry firing together when it happened. By the way, that safety works just fine now. Again, I have a Dremel. I custom modified the safety on a $3,000 2011 to fit my hands better. It looks beautiful. Nobody would ever know we fucked with it, but we had to blend it better to the rear of the frame of the gun. Yes.
Yeah, you know what the funny thing is, like, when we were together for our family vacation, you and I took these guns out to the range together, and I didn't even notice that there was a difference.
Right. Well, we got after. She was the 2011 ambidextrous safety is meant to tongue and groove together on the inside of the frame. So there's clips. And what had actually happened was I caught on the safety with my hand dry firing. So I'd separated those two clips so the safety would move independently of itself. Like, so the left side of the safety would be up and the right side of the safety would be down, or vice versa. Now, of course, the actual safety mechanism itself was engaging or disengaging properly. It was working, but how would you know?
Right.
You wouldn't know, because your lever on the gun was just fucking free spinning, doing whatever it wanted to do. Not so good, right? So we actually used the bench vise to pinch the safety back together while in its frame, used the Dremel to blend it to the back of the frame better, and we used a freaking sledgehammer and some needle nose pliers to bend all the shit back in place back there so it would all stay together. I was 100% convinced that I would need a new aftermarket ambidextrous safety for that gun, and I don't. It runs perfectly fine. And not for like 6 magazines, but for like the last 3 months. Every class I've taught, every match I've shot, every step I took, every move I made. Yeah, like everything. All the things have been shot out of that 2011. That thing's got about 6,000 rounds out of it. The extractor is still tuned right. The gun's still running. Everything's good. Recoil spring's still legit. No future safety problems. Pretty cool, right? Unfucked it myself. Or I could have called the really nice guy up from the really cool high-end 2011 manufacturer that's working with me, and I could have been like, excuse me, there. Give me, I need safety. Excuse me. Now, to be fair, as they've asked us to do, I gave them product feedback on the fact that a left-handed shooter drawing that gun from appendix carry might have some safety snag issues. they want to know that stuff. Pretty cool. All right, so now let's see. MG and
right.
Mickey want to know about Glocks.
So let's.
I love how you're like, all right.
Yep. So this is near and dear to me, and let me explain why. And I think this holds true for a lot of people that really get into firearms and firearms technology. What actually got me to my interest in guns. I did not go into the military being all about guns. I didn't. I wasn't against them. Just I would rather do what typical young men do, and that's chase ladies, right? I was partying, I was having a good time. Like, I went into the military, continued that. Obviously, I was proficient with firearms. But when I got out of the military and I got into the firearms industry, I was always interested, and I always had an interest in the engineering that goes behind them. Right? I look at it like a car engine, right? It is a bunch of parts that are precision fit together to accomplish a particular task. And somebody thought about making all these different things that fit together perfectly to do that thing. It's very cool to me, right? With that being said, the first gun that I learned how to completely take apart was a Glock. And I actually encourage people that if you are interested in learning how to not necessarily make modifications, but understand how guns work better, you can feel safer because of the simplicity of their design. And honestly, the lack of precision in the fitment of its individual parts. Take apart a Glock completely in relatively short order. So long as you don't lose anything, you be mindful of your workspace and your environment, and actually learn quite a bit about this, right? So MG's questions, at least currently, are around, trigger modifications to a Glock. First and foremost, one of the first things that most people learn how to do is what they call a 25-cent trigger job. Get you a tube of Flitz polish and a Dremel, and you learn how to take that gun apart, learn how to remove the trigger mechanism, which is an entire assembly, and further take that apart, and literally any place where metal touches metal, you clean and polish with that Flitz polish and your Dremel with the buffing wheel, right? You will be surprised at how much of an improvement that just that little bit of time makes in a Glock trigger. That being said, and Kent, I know you've got a thing about this. Once you learn how to do that, you ultimately realize, hey, I bet we can push this farther and we can do different things and replace Glock triggers quite handily. So to MG's point, let me see if I can find it. So trigger jobs. Okay, why aftermarket? Advantages, flat face, yes or no? Let me address the flat face yes or no first before you get into your thing, Kent, because I know you've got a whole thing about this. Flat face or curved triggers is purely user preference.
Nope, it's engineering. You're wrong.
It's user preference.
I know. If you'd have said it was engineering, I would have said it was user preference. It's fine.
Jesus, it's like we're married. Anyway, by Pennsylvania common law, when you've hosted 130 podcasts together. So don't assume my gender. Anyway, the curved or flat face is purely user preference. There's no damn difference one way or the other than it comes down to the comfortability of the shooter. And I will say that while it is user preference, ergonomics, fit and finish will and can make a difference to how well that user interacts with that particular firearm. So if you get an option to try before you buy or handle other people's Glocks that have different trigger faces on them, I encourage you to do so. Or rent some at your local gun range or whatever have you that might have those modifications. But user preference. So Kent, aftermarket triggers for Glocks.
Holy Christmas. All right, so here's the thing. MG, don't do this unless you're going to do the rest of it. So, Glocks, fuck Glocks, machines are machines. And the thing that connects to the thing that connects to the other thing that touches the other thing that touches the other thing all rely upon each other and their tolerances in order to function. So, if we change an aftermarket trigger in a Glock but do nothing anywhere else, we may or may not achieve a desired feel in the trigger that we like, but we have absolutely changed the mechanical reliability of the system. And more importantly, we're starting to fart around with the safety devices in the gun. The Glock safe action pistol, blah, 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 3 independent intermittent internal safeties, the plunger, the striker, the blade, the dot, the dot, the dot. Okay, cool. So if you're gonna play with the weight in the trigger and the trigger, you know, and the spring and the connector and the all that good stuff, the cruciform, you also have to play with the spring weights that compensate for it. So it goes a little something like this for me. What I want to do to a Glock to achieve a nice, smooth trigger press requires this. And I'm going to give you a recipe, MG. I'm going to tell you I'm like what to do on a Glock, right? So I'll use a Glock 30.
Giving away the secret. You're giving away the secret sauce on the podcast.
That's it.
Here we go.
But so Glock 34 I'll use. Overwatch Precision Polymer DAT flat face trigger. That's my preference. As TJ said, that is the gas pedal. It is purely user preference. Do you want a flat face or a curved trigger? I want a flat face trigger. I have trigger reach problems.
Real quick, why Overwatch Precision?
Because Overwatch Precision does not stretch their tolerances so far as to begin to pre-tension the striker, which makes me really uncomfortable in any kind of concealed carry application. OP actually runs their tolerances to a point where you're not at risk of physical danger. I will remove. There are other manufacturers that do it well. OP is the only one also that you can operate a striker control device, as now sold by Sling'N Tactical, formerly the Gadget or the striker control device, the little flappy thing on the back of the striker that you can push down on and deactivate the striker while you holster, as yet another safety precaution. You can use the Gadget or the striker control device per the original engineer of the device. He and I had a very long conversation about this. You can either run an Overwatch Precision trigger with the striker control device, or you can run a stock Glock trigger, nothing else. So there you go. I do not know what Ernest Sling'N would say about that. I don't know what Sling'N Tactical has put out in their more recent marketing for the striker control device. I don't know what changes have been made since. But when it was being sold as the Gadget by an individual who should now remain nameless, seeing as he sold the damn company, and I don't know if he's interested in for further contact on the whole deal. But that guy said, hey, man, you can either use this with an Overwatch trigger or you can use it with a Glock trigger, and that's the end of it. So that's what I do. So Overwatch Precision Polymer DAT flat face trigger, 4-pound striker spring, stainless steel striker channel, right? The trigger in that whole kit is a drop-in, reduced power plunger spring, and reduced power recoil spring. About a 13-pound recoil spring and a Glock 34 4-pound striker spring. The Overwatch trigger, reduced power plunger spring, equals a gun that will recoil correctly, pass the Glock functionality test correctly, pass the Glock recoil and recoil spring test correctly, still reset the gun, still pop most primers that won't give you light primer strikes all the time, give you a safe functioning, very good feeling trigger, and you won't have one weight in that system of weights that's overly out of balance that might cause things to be fucking catchy or weird or shitty anyway.
Right.
Right. So I don't know. It's kind of like I'm trying to get a. You can't do rear shocks in a truck and not do front shocks. I mean, I guess you could, but like shit's gonna be out of balance if you do. So that's why. So MG, what you're looking at here is you're looking at a trip to a company called NDZ, Nora Delta Zulu NDZ Performance, and you're gonna put in your Glock model, and you're gonna buy all the springs that compensate the weights to make what you want to have happen make happen. So you're gonna go to NDZ Performance, and you're gonna buy all that. You can buy it at other manufacturers. NDZ is the one I know has got it in stock right now. You can buy that Overwatch stuff. You can be good to go. There's other known goods. There's the Ghost connector. The trigger connector is real good. That's pretty squared away. Other companies like Apex Tactical do a real good job making aftermarket Glock triggers. I'm not so big on the TJ. You're not wrong, and yes, every one of you should do a 25-cent Glock trigger job. It's a good learning experience. I'm not so much on the fucking with the factory shit. I would way rather just drive some pins out and drop in a whole set. Like,
oh yeah,
for the investment of my time. That's what I'm going to be after. So that kit that I keep in my truck with all the different springs and spring weights and stuff I need to help you fix your internals on your Glock, those whole kits in those little fishing tackle boxes are all built out by NDZ Performance. And I don't mean like they build them for me. I mean, I went on NDZ Performance and went 3 of those, 4 of those, 6 of those, 10 of those, 12 of,
Yeah, I did the same. I did the same damn thing. The one thing I will caution people on, because speaking of home gunsmithing, I learned this lesson. I recently picked up the Shield Arms magazines, the metal magazines that allow my Glock 43X and my 48 to hold 15 rounds. Great magazines, function beautifully. What a lot of people are doing is swapping out the plastic magazine release for a metal one.
Right.
The metal magazine releases from NDZ Performance do not interface properly with those Shield Arms magazines.
No.
I can, because I noted it when I went to the range for the first time, every time I'd shoot the gun, the magazine would fall out. And got big hands, but never had a problem hitting a Glock magazine release unintentionally. I was able to seat the magazine and then grab the magazine without hitting the slide or the magazine release and pull the magazine straight out of the gun. So it does not interface well. I'm not saying they make a bad magazine release. That's not the point. They just don't interface well with those aftermarket magazine bodies. So take heed if you do decide with a 43X or a 48 to get the Shield Arms magazines, buy the mag release from Shield Arms as well.
Absolutely.
Or you could just pick up some extra plastic magazine releases from NDZ Performance for $4 a piece.
Right. Also be aware that once you do the Shield Arms metal magazine release, your polymer mags are going to start not dropping free so well.
Yeah, they'll bind up.
So
and
if you're going to make
that's one of the things that boggled my mind, because I do remember yours binding up. And I'm like, okay. So I put my factory Glock mags back in, and they went in and out just fine. I'm like, I don't have the whole binding problem. That's interesting. And then now I know why, because they interface fine with factory Glock magazines.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting tale. The thing, MG, really that bothers me with the Glock is that these Glock patents have started to run out. The Gen 3 Glock patents are gone. The Gen 4 Glock patents are about to be gone. Glock is becoming a universal term like jacuzzi. Like not all hot tubs are jacuzzis, but all jacuzzis are hot tubs or whatever.
Mm-hmm. It's like Band-Aid.
Right. Band-Aid's another good. Yeah. But the thing with this Glock thing is like there are umpteen bajillion companies making Glock shit. Air quotes, emphasis added, like aftermarket Glock shit. And what's troubling is most of them make some good Glock products and some real shitty ones. Not to kick out any future potential sponsors, but like Zev is a great example of that. I mean, here's Zev, where they make rip shit, rockin' awesome triggers that are like, man, you guys do a good job at these triggers. I wouldn't fucking carry one because I don't believe in your safety tolerances, but like they shoot good. So if you're gonna put together a competitive shooting Glock, and you're gonna carry it in an offset USPSA rig, and you're reholstering it, and you're maybe gonna clip the outside of your freaking foot if you have a boom oops, I guess all right, bro. I don't know if I'm down with that, but if you are, that's cool. But dude, go ahead and buy a Zev aftermarket slide one time and tell me that some bitch don't break in half. Why? I don't know why. Same company, same. They could make the one thing, but they haven't figured out the other to save their ass.
Because metallurgy's hard.
Sure, man.
Get it?
Sure. That's funny. But like when you look at this stuff, the other thing that really gets you is some of these same companies, like how many Glock slide manufacturers do you think there are on planet Earth? Because it ain't how many Glock slide labels there are for sale on the internet. I can promise you that. A lot of these motherfuckers are OEM'd by the same 3 or 5 companies. So would it really behoove you, MG? And I'm not going to put all this out on the internet and start shitting on all kinds of companies, but it would behoove you to figure out, like, all right, so who's the OEM slide manufacturer that Zev buys from? Got it. Who's the OEM slide manufacturer also selling to other than Zev? Got it. Oh, look, 4 companies I probably shouldn't buy an OEM, an aftermarket Glock slide from. You see what I'm saying? So, like, don't travel down the rabbit hole. The thing with the Glock is it's just like the AR-15, right? It's like Legos. You can put all kinds of doodads and hoop-de-hoos and hottie-haws on them, and some of them are valuable and some of them are not. Everybody makes something for it. My suggestion to you would be, as you make those modifications, keep the stock factory parts close at hand.
Yep.
Understand why your spring weights and why your balances are what they are. Know what you're trying to accomplish. Don't put a better trigger in a gun if you can't grip the son of a bitch in the first place and shoot a halfway decent group to save your life. There's other stuff to invest in there before we start, taking a $450 thing and turning it into a $1,500 thing, which is very easy to do. I mean, I've got the safe to prove it. I mean, holy fuck.
Hell yeah, man. You start, and most of it's stuff that you try and then you realize you don't like it that much and you go with something else.
Right. And you end up like, I wish I could have the money back that I spent in the beginning on the stupid fucking half measures. Like this will be good enough money. Nah, it wasn't good enough. And you fucking pissed at me. You burned it. You lit that money on fire. That was fucking retarded. And I've got a safe full of those guns. Firearms are not for sale on YouTube, but if anybody would like a wildly customized Glock 43, holler at your boy. I ain't never shooting that piece of shit again. I fucked it up so bad it's ridiculous. But yeah, you live and you learn. They're interesting, and these guns are getting more and more ubiquitous and all that. But you can work at it. I'll tell you this: what you don't want to be is the guy who shows up to the training class. This is where the gun tinkering and the home gunsmithing, and this is where I think we ought to end this because it makes a lot of sense. The people who can't fucking leave well enough alone. and just have to tinker with shit for the sake of tinkering with it. And we made it worse. I mean, I know a dude who has had several gun classes interrupted because of hackwagon, half-ass attempts at making a gun better. And you're like anybody who knew anything could have looked at him and went, hey, bro, you just cannot run a full power recoil spring and a light striker spring without eventually having an out of battery discharge in a Glock. It is only a matter of boom, ouch. Well, ain't that a bitch? I fucking told you so. Now take your broke ass Glock 17 back where you come from and come back to class when you're an adult and you'll listen to an instructor. You just smoked the gun. I told you were going to smoke that gun. I told you that was going to cause the slide to stay open and the gun was eventually going to fire out of battery. And when it didn't happen a month later and you were all triumphant in your results and you came back to me to brag about it, the next time you showed up in class, you had an out of battery discharge. I'm very glad I didn't need to tourniquet you because you lost a thumb. I'm not being a dick. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, why can't we leave well enough alone? We can't always be fucking with shit.
Yeah, and that was going to pivot me into my closing comment is all the gun manufacturer, all the home gunsmithing, all the hand turkeys and macaroni art that you want to make. Whenever you have a new gun or even a new to you gun, do not try to make any modifications to that gun until you have put at least 1,000 rounds of ammo through that thing in practice and training.
Yep.
Leave it alone, because here's the thing that happens with firearms. Around 500 to 750 rounds, depending on the gun, is when those things really start to break in. Metal on metal contact, lots of dry fire, lots of practice. All those parts will start to wear together a little bit better. Things will naturally smooth out and get easier, and you will build the myelination, the muscle memory, in your joints and find both minor and major motor skills to overcome some of the challenges or the discomfort that you might feel with that firearm. You don't truly know that gun until you've put at least 1,000 rounds through it, if not more. So take that take that with whatever grain of salt that you want, but that's generally how I do things. I will not make any modifications short of like optics and sights. That's not the point. Like internal guts, operational, the operating system of the firearm, I will not start messing with until I put at least 1,000 rounds through it, period.
You know what? I'll caveat you on that. Unless you got a recipe.
Yeah.
I know exactly what I'm going to do.
That's fair.
I will, if you sent me a brand new Glock 34 tomorrow, I wouldn't even take it to the range before I did all the things I usually do to a Glock 34. Because I know what I like. Right. I know exactly what works for me. I know how those parts interface. Assuming you send me, now, this is funny. Assuming you send me a Gen 5 Glock 34, I know exactly what I'm going to do to it. If you sent me a Gen 4 Glock 34, I'd probably pull a TJ and go shoot it a little bit. And make sure that the same tendencies in that gun, Glock 34s are notorious for negative recoil. This is why spring balance is so crucial. Recoil, spring, balance weight. A Glock 34 is one of the rare firearms that you will shoot, and it will have this tendency to whip in the barrel, and the barrel will end up in a lower position than it was when you started shooting. Negative recoil is a thing. So I assume that a Gen 4 Glock 34 will do the same thing. Oddly enough, I only have experience with the Gen 3 and the Gen 5, and they both did that for me. So if you send me a Glock 34, it's getting a 13-pound spring or an 11-pound spring, recoil spring. It's getting a 4-pound striker spring. It's getting a stainless steel guide rod with the cup adapter at the end. It's getting an Overwatch trigger, right? It's getting a stainless steel striker spring. It's getting a striker control device. It's getting either milled the Gen 5 is getting a CH plate put on it. I know what's American GL 429s or 329s are going on it because they're the short sights that you can get to still see over the optic. It's getting a freaking, grip work and an undercut done. I know exactly what I'm doing to that gun, right? If I sound like a dude who's done like 11 69 Corvettes at this point in his life, it's because I've done like 11 Glock 34. You get my point?
Those car guys, when like any other mechanic would pull out a computer and plug it into the OBD2 port to figure out exactly what was going on. Meanwhile, that dude with the old Stingray pulls off to the side of the highway and said, cylinder number 3 is misfiring again. Like,
right. Exactly. Yes.
How the hell do you know? I can feel it. What? The specific cylinder? Yeah, man.
Right. Yeah. So, no, that's my, I know that shit like old Pat knew to look at the freaking headspace on that revolver and tell me you didn't need a feeler gauge to figure it out.
Yep.
And he was right. So it's like some of that shit you just know. So here's the deal, man. To those of you who are looking to be this guy, to do the home tinkering and all that, number one, caveat emptor should be your own personal safety. Like, if you can't reset a Wi-Fi router, please, for the love of fucking God, don't dick wagon on a gun. Right? Like please don't go out and blow yourself to pieces.
That's going on a t-shirt.
Well, I'm just saying.
If you can't reset a Wi-Fi router, don't dick wagon a gun.
I'm just saying, dude. Like, I'm like, if you're not that guy, you're not that guy. If you're not that guy, you're not that guy. You know who you are. If you don't have the patience for this, don't fuck around with it. If you're the person who has like the gun that is their, like God damn it, if somebody comes up in this house tonight, it's going to be this Glock 43 and that's it, or 43X or what. Like, if you have a gun to carry, I might highly recommend not home butchering the gun you have to carry. Right? I might recommend taking that to a professional, because, Jesus, man, like, you can't do any work on that gun and think it's going to run. You have got to go vet it. So like you can't swap, like MG, you can't swap the triggers of them kids' guns and then have them kids carry them guns and then shoot them later. Like, you got to be able to swap the trigger, oil that shit up, make sure everything's squared away, take them bitches to the range.
If you're gonna bet your life on it.
Yeah.
Like, you better be confident enough to bet your life on it.
Like, so our boy's a trucker, right? So, homie, you wouldn't take freaking a whole 53-footer load of logs down a canyon pass in goddamn Colorado without knowing them brakes on the truck were square. So, like, don't fuck with the gun and then just be like, yeah, it'll be all right. I mean, it probably will be until it ain't. So, Murphy's a motherfucker.
That whole Murphy's Law, man, it'll get you every time.
So just that's my thing with that. And then, of course, like the other end of that is like the gun could not work, and like that's bad. So like somebody dies because the gun didn't work, or you blow your finger off because you fucked around, took too much material, fucked up the headspace. Whatever you did to the gun to render it boomy. We want pew, not boom. That's another t-shirt. Pew greater than boom. Like, we don't want boom. So, like, don't be fucking with shit that's going to get splody. Mm-hmm. So, that's my deal.
I've seen Glocks go full auto before.
Sure, or that. Like, yeah. It's all a thing.
So, well, good show, man. What do you got for closeout?
Oh, dude. Still have, like, what do I have? 2 or 3 slots for Tim Herron's class coming up at the end of July. Class is good. We got more than our minimum. We're ready to rock and roll. We got a good group of dudes and chicks, but like, I could use another sign up or 2. So greenmountaindefense.com/training for that. Old Timmy coming to Pennsylvania. That's pretty cool. Private lesson, 5 packs are going like gangbusters. $600 will get you 10 hours of private training. That is the best way you can pay for Green Mountain Defense's private training. Our regular hourly rate is way more than that. But if you give me $600, you're promising me you're showing up for 5 private lessons. So gotcha, bitch. You on the calendar now. Daddy's holding you accountable for that shit. So you got to show up because you already did pay for it. Got handgun fundamentals class coming up in the fuck is that town called? Jesus. Hummelstown, Pennsylvania. That's going to be pretty cool. Brand new, never, ever, ever shooters. Just finished an awesome rifle class. That was pretty cool. On our way down to Apache Solutions, September 9, 10, and 11 weekend. TJ and I, holler at your boys, will be down there teaching defensive pistol metrics. I will be available for video footage, Trey, and private lessons, everyone else as needed, while we're down there at Apache hanging out, shooting a breeze, and enjoying a good old time. Range Master, Super Master instructor thing at the end of this month. So here in a couple podcasts, you may refer to me as a Massa Hour, assuming I don't fucking totally fail for some reason, which would be kind of hilarious. If I do, we'll come on the podcast and talk about how I totally failed. TJ,
it'll just be an hour. It'll be a 90-minute episode of Kent ugly crying like a man-child.
No, it'll be an hour and a half episode of TJ going, "You doctor yet? Why you no doctor?" Yeah, so that'll be a thing.
Well, you know, damn Dan Brady's a master now. So
no, I go.
Don't make me bring your brother into this.
That's so. Oh, that would be the worst. That would be so bad.
Or worse, or even better, you and Dan fail miserably, and Derek comes home with the gold.
Okay, so real quick though, Derek ain't nothing to sneeze at. That boy can shoot.
Oh, I know. No, he's a good dude. I like Derek.
I shouldn't have fucking taught him anything. If I'd have known I was gonna have to compete against him later, I wouldn't have showed him shit.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to getting back out there with the Apache boys. Just y'all keep driving through North Carolina until you come across two trucks with rooftop tents parked next to each other, and two dudes doing karate behind them.
Facts. True. That's happening. Yeah. All right, bye.
All right, guys. That is the show for this week. Thank you all for tuning in. We will see you all next week. Until then, take care of each other. God bless you all. Get out and shoot.
Toodles. I have to pee. I'll be back, but I have to pee.